you? It's March. It's already March. And I don't know where the year is going. Do not know how time is flying so fast, but here we are. So tonight's topic for Training Tuesday is all about bullies and how to manage the bullies at the office, because they're there. The bullies are there. We see them. We work with them. They see us. They work around us, over us, all that good stuff. I have so many bullying stories, which I'm not sure what exactly that says about me, except that I've been in the workplace a really long time. And I'm sure you guys all have stories too, and that is part of what I want to hear tonight. What are your stories and your experiences with bullies, bullying bosses, bullying coworkers, because they come at all levels. But I'm going to share a few of my stories with you guys tonight as we talk about, what do we do, right? How do we manage bullies? Because I've had all the different flavors of bullies. So I've had the coworker who was super passive aggressive and felt like she needed to put me in her place. So every phrase started with I don't mean to be rude, but then she would go on to say her rude thing. I had a boss who told me that I was not qualified for the role that I had been hired into 6 years earlier. Yeah. I had a coworker who used to step all over my ideas, and she would either take my stuff and then try to manipulate them to make them her own, or she would just flat out claim credit for my ideas, right? She'd tell me in a conversation, oh, that's a terrible idea. We're never going to go forward with that. And then in a meeting the next day, tell the rest of the team, oh, I have this great idea. Yeah, worked with her. I had a boss who used to ignore me, right? Give me the cold shoulder at corporate events. And to the point where I was ignored, it was noticeable. It wasn't just she ignored me and nobody else really saw because we just weren't interacting. She ignored me in a way that was people, customers, and partners were coming up to me and going, why is she not talking to you? What was that about? So it was disruptive. I had a boss who threatened to fire me my second week on the job. Yeah, he was fun too. So I'm going to talk about all those scenarios, and kind of what we can do, right? When it comes to interacting and having to deal with bullies at work, what can we do? So, like I said, what I want to know and what I want to hear are what some of your stories are. So if you've worked with bullies, if you've got one now, by all means, share in the chat what you're working with, what you're dealing with, what's that scenario look like. And I will keep sharing mine. And hello, I see you, Jackie and Joyce. It is nice to see you both here. Thank you so much for saying hello. I will say what I always say somewhere in the beginning of our Training Tuesdays is, hello, I am Natalie Hahn, and I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting, and happy to have you here for Training Tuesday. Tonight's topic is part of what we're calling our Glass Obstacle Course at the Office series. And the idea behind that is that sometimes navigating our career at the office is very much like a glass obstacle course. Our barriers aren't always upward. Sometimes they're just right in front of us. And bullies can be one of those obstacles. I was also thinking too, and this is not a great coincidence, but given what's happening in the Ukraine right now, I mean, the world stage, is there a bigger bully than Putin right now? No, there isn't. And he has exhibited all the signs, right, of a tyrannical bully for the last, Lord, how long has he been around? 20 years? We've known. His actions are not a surprise. We've known. So I want to start by sharing some of the statistics I found of why this is such an important topic and why this is such an important topic for women in particular. Because I was actually surprised. The last time I gave a chat about bullying, I did it last year, and this, the study I think that I referenced wasn't out yet. But bullying is up. It has increased 57% since 2017. That's a lot. 57%. It's increased. So in this era where we think we are more sensitive and more aware, and we're dealing with Black Lives Matter and the LGBTQ community, and bullying has increased 57%. And we can thank COVID for a piece of this too. Targets of bullying. So if you are a target of bullying, you have a 67% chance of losing your job. If you are a victim of bullying, 67% chance of losing your job. Women bully other women twice as much as they bully men. That's why I think it's incredibly important, especially in this group that is an all-women group. We don't have any men in this group, to talk about bullying and the fact that we are more likely to do it to each other. We're twice as likely to do it to each other than we are to pick on a man. There are an estimated 48 million people in the workforce who are being bullied at work. 48 million. That is not a small number. And 60% of companies in the US still have a negative reaction when bullying is reported. And by that, I don't mean they're negative about the bullying. I mean they have a negative reaction to the fact that you are reporting bullying. And their reactions stack up as rationalizing it, defending it, or diminishing your response to it. Gaslighting, right? It's not that big a deal. You're overreacting. Now, thanks to COVID, we have a shift in bullying. For those who are being bullied, 25% say that bullying has increased since COVID hit in the last 2 years. Of the bullying that happens in the COVID era, 55% of it happens in virtual group meetings. So it happens in a group. 25% of it happens in virtual private meetings, and 20% happens over email. And half the time that email is a group email, and half the time it's a private one-on-one email. So we are not protected, and in fact we are more at risk for bullying now that we are in the COVID era. It's gone up. People who are bullies feel that they can be more aggressive because, of course, there's no face-to-face contact, right? There's no direct impact for them. They can say what they're going to say and do what they're going to do, and they can shut their screens down. And what's the blowback, right? But I look at this and go, okay, holy cow, these are not acceptable statistics, not at all. And the fact that it's going up in a time where we pride ourselves on being more sensitive and more aware, it's fascinating. And I can't speak to why this is happening. I don't know why it's going up the way that it is and at the rate that it is. That actually surprises me. But I can tell you, and what we will talk about, are what are some of the common drivers behind the bullying behaviors. And understanding some of those common drivers will help us with our strategies for how do we diffuse it? How do we stop the bullies from becoming bullies, or from at least bullying us, picking us as their targets? So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios and let me know if these are familiar to you. You've experienced this or you've seen this in the workplace, right? So one would be you and a coworker who are friendly. You're going after the same job. You're going after the same promotion. And you get it, right? After all the interviewing and conversations, you get the promotion, your coworker doesn't. But now, in meetings when you're working together, she's disagreeing with your decisions. She's undermining your authority. You suspect she's talking behind your back and kind of stirring up some drama there, right? So now you guys were friendly if you weren't friends. So what happens? You feel badly. You actually feel guilty that you got promoted and she didn't. You're also a little bit hurt and you're frustrated because now what's happening is not only is she stirring stuff up and being kind of this resistance band in your work, but you're starting to get little pieces of resistance from other people. So if you've experienced something like this, let me know. This is the one who stirs the pot, right? This is a little bit of the problem child, but she's a problem child specifically because she's envious. Her motivation is envy because You have something that she wants, and she wants to take it from you. And so what she does is she spends her energy damaging your reputation and damaging your credibility so that ideally it gets taken away from you and given to her. Which, when it's put out there that bluntly, it sounds so insidious and terrible, right? And you go, no, she can't mean that. But she does. There's no other reason to behave the way that she's behaving. She's jealous and she is trying to flip the situation. So there's one motivation. Envy is a very strong motivation for bullying behavior. You have something that they want. And hello, Jill. It is good to see you. Welcome. Another scenario. You're working on something and your boss keeps coming in and either taking over parts of your project, right? That you're not doing that right. This boss has a strong personality. She has a way that she likes things done. She tends to only gravitate and hang out with other people who have her same kind of personality type, like kind of aggressive. They view other people who aren't really forceful and pushy as weak. And so she's kind of stepping in on your stuff. You know perfectly well that your work is fine, that your work is more than fine. But she doesn't stop interfering because it's not her style, it's not her way. This is how she wants it done, and you need to step up and step in line. This is frustrating. It's demoralizing. It leaves you that seed of doubt of, am I not skilled enough? Do I not know what I'm doing? And it's exhausting because it also makes you angry. And then you feel kind of stuck because there's just enough of that seed of doubt that you're like, maybe there's more I need to do or learn before I really make that leap. Before I'm really worthy of this promotion or her getting out of my way. So what's this motivation? Well, this motivation is control. Control. As long as she has control, she has power, right? So if you are properly in your place, you are not threatening to her, you are not in her way, you are not competing with her, and this bolsters her confidence and her self-esteem in a false way, but that's the emotion that she feels coming out of it, right? So this is about control and power. And Jackie can relate, this is an example of a micromanager. And we always wonder, right, what motivates the micromanager? Well, the surface level motivation, and that's what these things are that I'm talking about, the surface level motivation is control and power. Now, scenario 3 would be you've presented a project to a leadership team. You've worked on something, you've presented this project, and you've received great feedback, right? You presented it, and in the room there, not only is everybody at the table going, hey, that was really great work, but your boss's boss says in front of the group, stellar work, fantastic job. So you leave the meeting feeling really good. But later your boss tells you that not only was your work subpar, but you made him look bad. And his boss was only saying what he said to be nice in front of everybody else. So now in this moment you feel shame. You feel embarrassed. You're questioning your true work abilities because part of you is wondering, but I was pretty sure I did do a good job. I was pretty sure they were genuine. But you're questioning yourself, right? The seed of doubt has been planted. So what's your boss's motivation? It's jealousy. You took the light that his boss used to shine on him. You took it away. Now, jealousy is a little bit different from envy because jealousy involves other people. Envy is you have something I want, I'm going to take that. Jealousy is I'm going to lose something. It's a fear of loss. And the boss's fear is I'm going to lose my boss's goodwill because you have shown up as the shiny new toy. Right? So jealousy involves 3 people. Typically, maybe sometimes more, but it involves 3 people because one person is afraid of losing something from the other. So when you take the spotlight of the boss's boss off your boss, you've become a threat. Now, what underlines all 3 of these scenarios is, and we can come up with 30 more scenarios, right, of these kind of bullying situations, but what underlines them is the common theme. Bullies are driven to action by fear. It's fear. They are afraid of being perceived as not good enough. And some of that fear of not good enough may be that they are afraid of losing their job. It could be they are afraid of losing influence or losing their friend group. It comes from they're afraid that they don't actually have the knowledge or have the experience and they're going to be found out. That's imposter syndrome, right? They don't want to look dumb. They're afraid they'll be perceived as weak, not a strong leader. They're afraid they won't get what they want, right? So these bullying tactics are ways for them to find ways to control the situation so that they can get what they want. And they're plowing through no matter what, but they are allowing themselves to act out of fear. Bullies are very fearful, very insecure people. That's the root of it. They're a little bit like street dogs. So if you see the random stray dog out on the street, and sometimes they're mean. Why are they mean? Because the street dog is out there trying to scavenge for food, and what's happening, right? Storekeepers and restaurant owners and even people in residential homes will chase the dog away. We'll throw rocks at the dog. We'll hit it with a stick or something. We'll shoo it away in an unfriendly fashion, and what happens? The dog learns to bite. Because it's hungry and it wants that scrap of food, and it's going to keep that scrap of food because that's what its survival is based around. That is the same fear that we're talking about. We train bullies just like we train those dogs. They're not born that way. We train them, which says we should have compassion for them, right? We should have compassion for them because think about what a terrible place that is to live in. Right? What an awful way to live, in constant fear that you're not good enough, in constant fear that one day you're going to be found out, that you're going to lose your job or you're not going to get that promotion, right? It's a terrible way to live. It's a churning of energy. It's sad and it's scary, and it's also completely unproductive and unacceptable. Right? Bullies need therapists, and it's not our job to do that for them. It's not even our job to tell them that. So what do we do? What do we do to mitigate the bully, right? To mitigate that energy in that situation. That's what we're going to talk about. And the truth is, the most effective way, the single most effective way to stop a bully, there's one key rule in all of this, is, drum roll, that's drum roll. The one key way to stop a bully is in the moment. You have to catch it and do it in the moment, which sounds incredibly scary. It's scary. And it's hard because it's pushing us to do something that we don't want to do, that is not necessarily our normal reaction. So I want you to remember, your bully is that sad little mangy street dog who doesn't have enough self-control over her anger and fear to be able to behave in any different way. She's mean. She's mean and she's fearful, and this is why she's lashing out. So, and you, as much as you might have compassion for wherever that behavior came from, it's not your place to tolerate it. You deserve more respect. You deserve the professionalism that should be expected in the workplace. So, take a deep breath and prepare yourself to deal with the situation, because it's going to come up again. Bullying is a repeat behavior. It happens more than once. And it happens more than once because bullies, that's their repeat behavior. That's how they behave. And if they've bullied you once at work and you're going to work with them again at some point, it's going to happen again. And bullying is a two-way dynamic. When we are the targets, we are participating in the bullying dynamic. So we have to recognize our responsibility in that, and then we have a choice to make, and it is that choice that we make in the moment that makes a difference. That is where the bullying stops, okay? Because what happens when the bully comes forward and they're steamrolling over us with their ideas, or they're telling us that we're not good enough and that we need to do things differently, and they are shining a light on all of our insecurities, right? When they do that, we step back, we shut down, we don't stop it, we step away from it. We shrink ourselves down. We play small. We allow them to be big and brash and bullying, and we step back and we think that we are being the bigger person. We think our reaction of just do what they want and get out of the way. Don't react in the same angry vein because you're just going to be as bad as they are. We think that we are being the bigger person, and we are not. When you allow a bully to bully you, you are not being the bigger person. You are being a victim. You are being bullied. And that behavior is what feeds the bully to do it again. You are giving them permission to treat you that way. So the only way to stop bullying is to stop being the doormat. Because when we're the doormat, we become a bully magnet. Oh, she didn't push back. She doesn't care. I can do this to her again because she behaves that way. That's how you need to stop a bully in their tracks, by making a different choice in the moment. Now, you may not always have a lot of choices of what you can do in the moment, but you do always have a choice. You do. So I want you to consider a few things that you can do when you're running into these different types of bullies. And I'm going to go back to the 5 personas basically that I mentioned at the front. The 5 bullies I've run into over the course of my career, and give you examples of ways that we can fight back in the moment. And you're fighting back as a professional. You're fighting back with your dignity and your integrity intact. You are not meeting them at their same level of angry energy, and you are not being defensive. Okay? Key to remember, when you take that deep breath and when you practice your response, because you will want to practice it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to feel natural, but you will want to practice it. So let's go back to my 5 bullies. And like I said, if these scenarios are familiar to you that I'm talking through, share that. If you've got new ones that I haven't talked about, share that. I mean, there's a million bullying scenarios, unfortunately. But by all means, share your stories in the chat. I would love to either talk through something I haven't mentioned, or just I know I'm not the only one who gets bullied, who's gotten bullied in her career. So I want to go back to the first one I told you about, because this is the one I think I wrote about this afternoon. I had this passive-aggressive coworker who would start her sentences with, "I don't mean to." And her most popular one was, "I don't mean to be a bitch, but..." And every now and then she switched up to, "I don't mean to be rude, but..." "I don't mean to be negative, but..." Now, this happened to me in one of my very first jobs out of college, professional jobs. And I would go home in tears. And I was newly married. I was a newlywed. And so my ex-husband would have me, would see me come home crying. What's the matter? Right? And I would tell him. Now, he was a Latin scholar, so he has an awful lot of knowledge about words and languages and history of languages and all this good stuff. And grammar, because when you study Latin, you study an awful lot of grammar. He got very upset one day when I came home with one of her "I don't mean to be a bitch, but" stories. And he says, "Listen, this is what we call preterition." And he explained to me, preterition is when we say we're not saying something by saying it. Right? So talk about a linguistical twist, right? We say we're not saying something, and by doing that, that's how we're saying it, right? So when you think about being at a roast, right, or you're being at some sort of speech, and somebody's introducing someone else, and they say, "Well, I'm not going to say that he has a terrible sense of humor, but..." And they leave it out there. And they don't even have to finish it, right? Because what you know is they've just said, "Oh yeah, he has a terrible sense of humor." Right? That's preterition. So here's what happens in preterition. When she says to me, "I don't mean to be a bitch, but I'm going to be one now anyway." That's what she's really saying. And guess what? She knows. She knows. Because when we're doing this, when we're using this little linguistical phrase to set ourselves up, we are intentionally setting ourselves up to say something rude or mean or unkind. We've just told you point blank up front, "I don't mean to be rude, but I am about to be rude." And we couch it with this idea that we're giving constructive feedback. that's how we justify that phrase. But here's the thing. If you're genuinely giving constructive feedback, you don't need to frame it that way. You wouldn't use that framework for giving somebody actually constructive feedback. It's how we excuse ourselves when we're about to say something mean, nasty, rude, whatever. I don't mean to be rude, but I am about to be rude. There's no way around that. We know what we're doing and it is intentional. Now, how do you deal with that? So this is where, and I did have to practice. When I was going through this, I practiced with my ex-husband before I actually went into the office and did it. Because she had been doing this to me for several months. And it kind of built up. Initially, I was kind of ignoring it. And then I was kind of like, well, wait a minute. This keeps happening. And it doesn't feel good. And then literally she was saying things that would make me cry. So, and because they were, again, it's an excuse to say something mean. So things that would come out of her mouth would be both personal and professional. I came home one day crying because she said, I don't mean to be a bitch, but since I'm thinner than you, and then she went on. And it was something about clothes or what we were eating for lunch. I don't know, but it was basically a comment of, I'm thinner than you. And every insecurity I had in my 23-year-old body about my weight and my looks and all of that just rushed right up. Right? And so I'm crying when I get home and I'm telling my husband that we were having this conversation about, I forget, it was either clothes or food, I don't remember, about whatever it was. And she said those words to me, I don't mean to be a bitch, but since I'm thinner than you. And he stopped, he goes, wait a minute. She's not thinner. Look at her. She's not thinner than you. But my insecurities were so strong that I was looking at her and going, but maybe she is. Right? So for something that was very obvious to my husband, for me, I was so insecure about it. Like, she flooded me with all that self-doubt. So in practicing with him, he was like, look, this is what you have to do. And I will say, in the 30 years since that happened, he was right. I can say my ex-husband was right about a couple things. This is one of them. This was one of them. He said the best way to deal with it is to confront her. And you don't have to do it in a mean way, and you don't have to do it in an aggressive way. And so what I practiced saying was, tell me what you mean by that. That was the phrase. I hear what you're saying. Tell me what you mean by that. Now, it puts them on the spot of, that phrase doesn't sit right with me. I need you to give me a little more context and explanation around what that means. And you can say that in a perfectly calm and contained way. And here's the thing, with all of our responses when we're dealing with bullies, being centered and being calm and neutral is the key in your response. Because what bullies are trying to do is rattle you. They want you to be rattled so that you shut down, so that they can keep steamrolling ahead. Your job is to stand firm in your power, in who you are, and be neutral. So the response was to her the next time, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. Could you please explain that more? And just stare her down. Now, typically, what's the reaction to this? If you guys have been in these shoes, you know, right? You know what the reaction is. What's the reaction? The reaction typically is, I was just joking. Or, you're being a little sensitive, right? The reaction is to push it back on you when they're flustered. And it's very easy, actually, when that happens. So what I had said to her was, you have to tell me, the next time that she used her preterition, I said, I'm not sure I'm clear on what you mean by that. Can you tell me a little bit more? And she looked at me and she went, I was just kidding. And I said, okay, it wasn't funny. And again, neutral, not mean, not attacking, neutral. Okay, it wasn't funny. She stopped. She stopped. You only have to do that once, maybe twice if they're testing the waters, and they stop, because you have firmly planted yourself in your power. You have made a choice in that moment not to be the doormat, but to call them on it. What do you mean by that statement? Please explain. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario was The boss who told me after 6 years of being a VP, he told me I wasn't ready to be a VP. Right, so I was vice president, and the background to this is that I had been promoted to a VP role 6 years earlier, at a different company. Had a different VP role at another company, and then came to this role. So 6 years, 2 VP titles already, came to this role, and in some conversation where I was not agreeing with his approach, and again, you guys in my group, you know me, I'm pretty respectful. I'm not very aggressive I can be very direct, but I'm not aggressive in my conversation. But something he was wanting to do, I didn't fully agree with, and so he turned to me and said, you're really not ready to be a VP. And I was like, Now, he had said things to me earlier in my job at this company that had sent me home crying. And I had been on the phone, literally like the week before, I had been on the phone in tears over something nasty he said with Shirley. And for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that Shirley was the co-founder of Dirty Girls. And this was actually right around the time we founded Dirty Girls, in fact. He was part of my inspiration for helping women get through male-dominated work environments. He was terrible. But at any rate, I was on the phone crying with her one night about something he said, filled again with self-doubt. Is it true? And she was just mad. She's like, look, I'm not coaching you right now. I'm your friend, and he's a jerk, and he's wrong. So she did coach me through being more prepared for when he got into that bully mode, because that was his pattern. He was a bully, and how to respond. So when that happened, it was literally a week later when he said to me, you're really not ready to be a VP. I was able to breathe and channel Shirley and said, we both know that's not true. And I have evidence to prove that. And that was all I had to say. We both know that's not true. I have evidence to prove it. Yeah, I have 2 other job titles with VP in them to prove that, yeah, I think I'm ready to be a VP. I think I can handle that. His reaction was he got very flustered, and he muttered something about it's just a matter of opinion. But he backed down. And although he continued to be a bully, he didn't bully me this way, right? Direct attack after that, right? Sometimes we can't quash the bully altogether, but we can change the mode of attack to a mode of attack that's actually more tolerable for us if we're going to remain in a situation where we're dealing with a bully. So something to keep in mind. Now, I know we're running a little bit longer than usual, but I actually feel like this topic's really important, so hang in there with me. We've got a few more scenarios to go through, and that's it. But bullying is so prevalent right now, and especially with COVID, with the numbers going up with online bullying, I really think it's important to address. And one of the reasons why this particular topic is so near and dear to me is not only because I've had my fair share of bullies in my career, but this is one of the core ways that we as women own our personal power. This is one of the key ways we step into our confidence. It is by standing up for ourselves. And it is by recognizing and standing up for ourselves that we are not belittling anyone else. We are not making anyone else uncomfortable, because it's not our responsibility to make them comfortable. We are carving out this place that says, I deserve respect. And that's my boundary. When we stand up to bullies, we are setting our boundaries for how we will be spoken to, how we will be treated, how we will be interacted with. This is truly one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself and for your career. So, next scenario, off my soapbox. I'll come back to that later. Off my soapbox. Next scenario, I had the coworker who was always either stepping on my ideas and changing them, or just flat out stealing them. We would be on a one-on-one conversation. I'd tell her about something I wanted to propose. Oh, no, that's never going to work. So she had me rethinking it. And then in the next team meeting, she'd go, so I was thinking about this thing. And then she'd pitch my idea, and everybody's looking at her like this is her great idea. So annoying. So annoying. So, same theme. You have to stop it in the moment, right? Going to her afterwards and saying, hey, that was my idea. What were you doing? She's going to come up with all sorts of backflips and excuses, first of all, of, well, I rethought about it, blah, blah, blah. But it's too late, because the bullying moment already happened, and it happened in a group setting, right? So the perception is already out there that this is her idea, right? She gets what she wanted. She gets the credit, even if she has to apologize later. When you want to stop the bullying behavior, it has to be in the moment. So the next time that she pulled one of these, I have this idea, and she started pitching it, I interrupted her, which I know is rude, but I interrupted her and said, hey, that's what we talked about in the conversation yesterday. When I shared that idea with you yesterday, you didn't think it was very good. I'm really excited you changed your mind, but I'm curious, what made you change your mind? I claimed it. I claimed it because then she has a choice, right? She has a choice then. First of all, the bullying moment was she was trying to steamroll over me and take credit. So I put out there, this was actually my idea, but in a positive way. So excited you changed your mind. What was that about? Again, it's not negative. It's not an attack. I'm merely staking my claim in a professional and courteous way, aside from interrupting her, but that was just so I could get a word in. Okay. You can wait till they pause or breathe, and you can still make the same comment. Now, she has a choice in that moment. She can choose to explain to me how she changed her mind, in which case it is fully acknowledged now. Oh, yeah, this was my idea from yesterday. Or she can take the option to call me out as a liar and challenge me by saying, no, this is my idea. Really? Well, we were talking about this very idea yesterday in my office. And here's what you said yesterday. When you challenge them and put them on the spot like that and they defend like that, they've already conceded and everyone in the room sees it. You have to remember that part of the bullying dynamic is the 1-2, right? Between the bully and the target, which is they attack and you retreat. And that's what encourages them to keep going. But the other piece of the dynamic is they do it to exert control and power over everyone else. When everyone else sees that they have control and power through their bullying, they are more likely to be bullied also. They are more likely to be subdued around this person and let him or her have her way, right? So there's a control piece that goes broader than just you, the target, when it's a public bullying event. When you stop it, you not only stop it for yourself, but you potentially empower other people to do the same thing. But trust me, they all know what's going on. The minute you say, hey, that was my idea, they know it was your idea. They know this person. People don't always speak up when they should, but we know what's going on. So again, same thing. You confront them in the moment. Actually, we talked about that yesterday. I love that you've changed your mind, but I'm curious why. What made you change your mind since yesterday afternoon? Put them on the spot. Now, another scenario. The boss who used to ignore me at events and ignore me to the point that it was uncomfortable for other people. Like I said, it's one thing when somebody's giving you the cold shoulder, but nobody else really notices. And it's this little one-on-one dynamic because you hate that person. So you're just going to avoid them. That's one thing. It's another thing when at these events where I was running marketing, so I was coordinating these events for my CEO, and my CEO was the one walking around completely ignoring me and avoiding me. And customers and partners were looking at me and going, why doesn't she talk to you? Why did she just turn away? Yes, it's embarrassing, but it's embarrassing for both of us, actually. It's certainly not good for business and not good for the company. So I realized that for this, any sort of one-on-one conversation wasn't going to get me anywhere. So here's what I did that at least worked in my mind to salvage the situation for customers and clients, which was the priority to me over my relationship with her at that period of time. This is a job I spent a very short time with because the minute I realized who she was as a bully, I wasn't staying. But while I was there, here's what happened. So we'd be at these events. If she was walking by with someone, with a customer or a partner or somebody, and she was walking by with her determined not to look at me out of the corner of her eye, right? I would walk in front of her and plant myself right in front of her and say, hi, it's so great to see you tonight. And then I would turn to the person next to her and introduce myself, which essentially forced her to engage with me because it's very hard to ignore somebody who is standing in front of you, speaking at you and speaking to your companion. So that, at least, my being the one who stepped in and took control of the situation and basically forced the eye contact, helped alleviate some of that. If she wasn't walking around with somebody and she was by herself or standing somewhere and still doing the whole, I am not going to look at you, going to avoid eye contact, I would grab somebody. I would grab a partner or a customer and I would say, let me introduce you to my CEO, and I would haul them over. And if I'm making the introductions, especially to a customer or a partner, somebody who's generating revenue for us, she's not ignoring me. She's not liking me any better. She did not like me any better. But I was trying to solve a different problem. While I was trying to stop the bullying, I wasn't trying to stop the bullying in terms of the way she was treating me personally. I was trying to prevent the broader situation from causing us problems. Because the minute a partner and a customer said to me, why is she ignoring you? What do they start thinking? Ooh, something's not going right in this company. The executive team's fighting with each other. Maybe we don't want to do business with them. It's just bad business. And this company hires me to do good business, right? So that was how I resolved that situation. And then I left. So the last scenario. So I would love, you guys have been very quiet tonight, so I would still love to hear your bullying stories if you have them. I would also love to hear how you might have handled this situation differently. I'm going to tell you what I did and why. But this situation was the one where the boss threatened to fire me 2 weeks into the job. So here's the situation. 2 weeks into the job, I'm on a conference call. It's like a Zoom call, right? With because I was remote this is pre-COVID, but I was remote at the time. So I'm on a conference call with the CEO and a bunch of other team leaders, and we're talking through a public relations plan. And the CEO wants something very specific done in this plan. And I had said to him, I understand what you're asking for, but that's really not a great best practice. Here's what I recommend we do instead. And the minute I started speaking, my phone started blowing up. So I'm on this Zoom call and my phone is silent, but it's like buzzing, it's vibrating, and I'm looking, and it's another member of the leadership team. He's the one who brought me into the company, so he knows me and he brought me into the company, and he's texting me. Stop, what are you doing? Stand down. That's what he kept saying. Stand down. Don't fight this fight. And I'm sitting there looking at these text messages going, I'm not fighting. He hired me to run PR and marketing. I'm giving him my opinion about the PR. How is this fighting? But when the CEO made that next statement, which was, Natalie, if you're not going to do this the way I want it done, I will find someone else who will. I was like, oh, am I getting fired? Like literally 2 weeks into the job, I'm getting fired for telling him there's a different way to do this. So what did I do in the moment? I did take a breath. And then I stood down. I said, okay, we will do it your way. And we did. What he wanted was not anything overly difficult or over the top. It just wasn't a best practice, and it was kind of a pain in the ass. But we did it. And the reason I opted to do it was because, one, I was 2 weeks into the job, and I was like, I'm not sure I'm ready to leave just yet. And I now was, but this incident did two things for me. It set the tone for our relationship going forward, because now I'm watching him. Oh, is this yet another CEO who wants to be a bully? Is a little bit of a tyrant and needs to have everything his way? Yes, he was. So I started taking notes. That was the first incident. When was the next one? I started taking notes in case I ever needed to have that conversation with HR, which sometimes we get to. I wanted notes. So what that moment did was also trigger for me, okay, Natalie, you need to pay attention. You've walked into a situation with somebody who is a tyrant, a little petty tyrant. He didn't hire you for your actual skills and abilities. He hired you to do what he said. So 2 weeks into the job, I know that much. The situation it set up was the twofold. One is we were never tight, that CEO and I. That set up our relationship for the next, I was at that job almost 3 years. And that set up our dynamic, which was that he saw me as adversarial towards his ideas. He saw me as somebody who was constantly trying to challenge him, even though I really wasn't. I was just trying to do things the way I knew they should be done, given my experience and expertise, right? So I started documenting his behavior. I did do what he said. And I paid attention to the fact that we had this dynamic. So I made sure we always had buffers. There was always someone else on the leadership team who I was partnering with who was going to be the interface with him so that I didn't have to do it directly. Now, the second impact of making that choice was that 3-year period of my career was stagnant. Now, I made the choice. I made the choice consciously that I was going to stay in this job and work with the CEO who I knew was a bully and who I knew he and I were never going to get along. And I knew my career was stagnating, and it was a conscious choice. So here's the thing, and I the women who I coach with one-on-one and in my group coaching, you guys have heard me say this. It's not my place, and nor do I judge the choices that you make. What I want for every woman I work with is to make a conscious choice. Now, I can rationalize 16 ways why I made the choice to stay what I call circling the airport. I was circling the airport in that job and not landing the plane, and I wasn't going anywhere else in my career either, right? And I can tell you, my kids were in high school, and I wanted to finish high school with them. I wanted them to stay in the same place and not move around a lot, right? I can rationalize that job was at the time period of this, there weren't a ton of remote jobs at my level. And I lived in an area where I wasn't necessarily going to find a lot of them. So I was better off staying where I was. I had all kinds of rationalizations for staying, but I was also very clear the impact on my career was I stagnated. I wasn't accelerating my career, right? That was one of the ways we don't accelerate our career is when we don't take our personal power and use it. And again, it's a conscious choice, so it's the choice that I made. Was it the best choice? Maybe not. In hindsight, we can always look back and say, yeah, I could have made better choices, but at the time, for me, that's what worked. And that's what it cost me. To not take my power and stand up to that bully, not make a different choice or change jobs or any of the other routes I could have looked at. For 3 years, I circled the airport. Now, the thing to know, too, especially in those tyrannical situations where it's the CEO at the top, right? It's somebody at the top who's tyrannical. There's no room for leaders. There was no room for me to step up and be a leader in that company because the tyrant doesn't want leaders. He wants people who do what he says. So in order to stay where I was geographically, in order to give my kids what I thought was stability they needed, that's what we did. That was also a time period I was going through my divorce. But like I said, I have 17 ways to rationalize why I made that choice. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's where I was. And I just want you to know that, I am very aware sometimes when we're coaching and you're making a choice that sometimes the people I work with the women that I work with feel like they're disappointing me. And you're not. As long as you are making a conscious choice of why you're doing what you're doing and what those consequences are, and you are choosing that, you've made the right choice for you. That's what matters. So, Sue, I'm glad you're here, and thank you. I'm glad you like the examples. If you guys have more, share them. If you have other scenarios, share them with me in the chat, email them to me, IM them to me. I would love to know what other situations we're working with that we can also help working through. And if you are working with a bully now and want some support working through that, then let's do it. Let's talk. Drop the word dig in the chat below. We will do what we call the Dirty Girl Mini Dig. Short conversation. It's a coaching conversation where you can talk to me about what's happening at work, who's the bully you're dealing with, and we're going to get you to a strategy that works for you for mitigating that situation. So all you have to do is drop the word dig in the chat. I call it the Dirty Girl Mini Dig. It's a 15-minute coaching conversation. There's no sales involved, not selling you anything. It's 15 minutes focused on getting you to an action step. It's going to help you either get closer to your goal or get out of a sticky situation that you might be in. We're just trying to help you make progress. My mission and the whole point of Dirty Girls, which is why we're here on Training Tuesdays, which is why we have this private group, is to help each and every one of us own our personal power. Because when we do that, we own our careers. And when we own our careers, we own the rest of our lives too. Owning our personal power, stepping up into being who we want to be and behaving the way we want to behave is exactly how we create the life we want to live. It is the choice we make in every given moment that creates our lives. That's all that it is. It's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. The choice you make every single second is exactly what's creating your life for you right now. And I would love to help you get it exactly in the direction you want it to go. So if you'd like to do the Dirty Girl mini dig, drop the word dig in the chat below and I will reach out to you and we will set that up. Otherwise, I hope, truly hope, that half of you, because that's what statistics say, that half of you are not dealing with a workplace bully, although statistics say you probably are. And I would love to help support you in that. So drop the word dig. Otherwise, have a fabulous evening. Pocket this information for the future if you do run into a bully that you need to manage. And I'm going to wish you guys a fabulous Tuesday evening. And I know I'm running really long. Thank you for sticking with me, guys. Have a great night.